Hi. So I'm not even really sure why I'm doing this because nobody watches my TikTok.
I have always been the loudest girl in the room.
But we're gonna be an influencer today.
I've always been put with it. I've always loved to put up a meal and bring people together around that. Cancer came in and said, huh, just kidding.
Cancer stole Beth's ability to communicate and eat the way she once did, but she is still using her voice and sharing her story through social media.
Can I taste? I can. A little bit. I have a little bit of tongue left in my throat. Can I chew? Technically, if I had all my teeth, no problem. Unfortunately, they removed my teeth before treatment. I've had 65 radiations, 7 tumors. My surgery was 12 hours long. Cancer was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it feels like getting a second chance. The bonus round is really sweet. Hi, my name is Beth. I had squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue. I was originally diagnosed March 11th, 2024.
Beth describes her cancer as something that snuck up on her. She never imagined the symptoms she felt could be signs of anything serious.
I had headaches. Nothing out of the ordinary, but headaches, more than I had previously. I was very tired. I had a hard time, just living my life at the same speed that I had 30 years previously. When I got sick, I had a really hard time getting over it. My immune system just didn't function the same way. I had a small ulcer on my tongue, looked like almost a cold sore or a swollen taste bud. My dentist noticed it and said, keep an eye on it.
Beth's symptoms continued to get worse. She went to her primary care doctor before they sent her to an ear, nose, and throat specialist.
And I went by myself, because I didn't think anything was wrong. So I came back the next morning, and the ENT pulled my tongue out, and she stopped wetting his ass. And I was like, that was an interesting reaction. And she said, we need to do a biopsy. And I said, okay, when? And she said, right now. And I was like, oh, well, how did you do that? And she basically pulled out like a sharp hole punch and pulled my tongue out of my mouth and put some lidocaine on it and punched a hole in the side of my tongue. I left there and I thought blood all over my face, and I'm like, you have to tell me what's going on. Like, what do you think is going on? And I was begging her, and she was like, I'm going to tell you that, in my professional opinion, it looks like cancer. I went back on Monday with my mom, with my sister, and my partner, and they told me that it was squamous cell carcinoma.
At first, the doctor never said the word cancer. They only mentioned squamous cell carcinoma, a term Beth later learned was actually an aggressive form of cancer.
The only thing I remember is being like, what do I do now? I haven't thought about it in a long time. What are my options? Where do I go from here? There's so much waiting involved, and there's so many options, and there's so many doctor's appointments and tests and things like that before anything actually happens.
Beth was given two options. One was to have surgery to remove the tumor and hope for clear margins, which would mean she might not need radiation or chemotherapy afterward. The other option was to skip surgery and go straight into radiation and chemotherapy.
In my throat, the ear, nose, and throat said that I declined surgery. I don't feel like that's how the conversation went. I feel like I was presented information and my options were turn out with a speech impediment, unable to eat, and then still have to do chemotherapy, or just do chemotherapy. And for me, at the time, it seemed like, well, why would I cut part of my tongue out if I don't have to?
Beth decided to do chemotherapy and blast radiation to the head and neck.
By the time I started treatment, I was very ready to get the cancer out of my body. I was in a lot of pain. I could barely eat. I could barely talk. It was very painful. I did 7 sessions of chemotherapy. I also did 35 radiations to the head and neck. I developed burns on the inside of my mouth, on my tongue, all over my cheeks, down my throat, into my chest cavity. I lost the ability to taste with food. I lost the ability to eat by mouth by the 4th week. Radiation to the head and neck is a form of cruel punishment. I know that it is effective in treating cancer, but I wish that more head and neck cancer patients understood how difficult it is. I finished my first round of radiation June 17th of 24. The flew confetti and the danced, and I had done it, right? I had been cancer.
Come on.
And I lost 45 pounds in 2 months. And I couldn't eat and I couldn't talk, but the cancer was done, and so we celebrated.
2 months later, Beth was forcing the narrative that she felt better, but she didn't.
Where is she? Where is she?
I was like, this is what happens next. Why is that better? Turns out, my cancer was treatment resistant. I started getting headaches around my birthday. We went to Miami. I'm really glad that we went on that trip because it's kind of the last time I had my tongue. When we got home, I started having headaches.
The symptoms didn't go away, and soon Beth felt that same headache she remembered from the time of her first diagnosis. She ended up in the emergency room because of the pain. Still, she didn't think the cancer was back.
The day that he told me about my reappearance, he sat right next to me. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, the cancer is still there or that. And I was like, how does that happen? That's not supposed to happen. They didn't tell me that to happen. Cancer number 2 was worse. It was much larger. It was much further back. And it was much meaner. They basically treated right here, and while I was in treatment, the cancer said, whoop, and jumped out of the treatment plan, and started over. At that point, basically said, I think you should go to MD Anderson in Houston. I wish that I would have started there. I can't go back.
Beth's original medical oncologist urged her to go to MD Anderson, one of the most prominent hospitals in the world. They ordered all new scans and agreed on the same treatment plan.
I came back October 28th, and every single one of them said that I had to lose my tongue. such a weird day. It was right before Halloween. We were going through the candy, and there was this little plastic spider ring, and Donald basically said, like, I knew before, but I want you to know that now, even more than before, I'm signed up for this, and I want you to know this. I thought my life was over. I thought that, like, I would never tell my mom that I loved her again. I thought that I would never, like, go out to dinner with my husband or enjoy the kitchen or be normal. And my fiance looked me in the eyes and basically said, like, I want every version of you.
When Beth's surgery day came, she was more than ready to get the cancer out of her body.
I didn't care what they did. I was very upset about losing my tongue when I found out. By the time I lost my tongue, I had resigned myself to the fact that I needed to get rid of it. It was full of disease, and it was killing me. It was actively trying to kill me, and I knew that. And I think that because of that, I lost sight of all the things that I would lose, and so the emotional impact of that has taught me now that I'm in survivorship, and that's kind of difficult, because a lot of what happens while you're sick feels like an out-of-body experience. Like, the body protects itself in some ways, like by putting up blinders. My surgery was 12 hours long. They cut my neck from here to here. They did a neck dissection, so they removed 75 of my lymph nodes, 85% of my tongue, and then they removed a 12-inch muscle on my leg, on my thigh, and they reconstructed a flap, so they lose the muscle from my thigh in my mouth, but because I had no natural tongue from here forward, the flap is anchored to the floor of my mouth, so it's sewn down. So I have about 10% of my, I never wrote it. Let's say about 10 to 15% of my base of tongue in my throat that's attached to the flap. But the flap is, like, if this is the flap, it's sewn to the gums. And then the way that, the only movement that the flap does is what the base of tongue pumps. Like, I can still pump that and get, like, minimal movement on the flap. But as far as my oral cavity, I have nothing that moves.
After surgery, Beth thought it was over, but her team at MD Anderson wanted her to do proton therapy, meaning more radiation to the head and neck.
I started my TikTok before radiation, after surgery. All of Proton is documented. This is kind of wild. I'm gonna do a little fit. So first I have my swear. This is from American Eagle. Good morning, happy Tuesday. Headed into work. Hello everybody, it's me. I just wanted to let you know I'm fine. I had some big feelings yesterday.
The biggest thing for Beth has been navigating her relationship with food.
We don't think about it, but food is at the center of everything, of the everyday life. Communication, the voice, the way that you talk to people, and eating, right? Holidays, social interactions, birthdays. Pretty much everything you do revolves around food and alcohol and talking and, being a person. That's what we do. And when you lose that, you feel like you don't have a place in the world anymore. I lost a huge part of my identity. I have always been the loudest girl in the room. I've always been put with it. I've always told jokes, and I've always loved to cook a good meal and bring people together around that. I've always made cocktails, and I've always done all these things, right? And cancer came in and said, just kidding. I feel like it wasn't just hard on me, it was hard on everyone in my life. No one, even in my immediate family, knew how to help me. I wanted so badly to eat again. And my speech pathologist were all you drinking shits, nutritional shits. And I was like, yeah, I still had my feelings at that point. And posted it. And I was like, yes, but I want to do my mouth. How do I do that? And my speech pathologist team at MD Anderson, I cannot say enough wonderful things about them. They have literally changed my life. I will be indebted to them for the rest of my life for giving me the chance to have the life I have now. I took a no-nonsense approach. I was like, if it's hard, but I should do it, tell me that. I want to do the hard things. The throat is one of the only muscles in the body that will completely forget how to do its job. They're forcing a swallow. You have no tongue. It's hard, and it's so hard. And I put a lot on the internet that's encouraging. I would be lying if I said that I don't still struggle. You know what happened that's been the biggest thing for me with food? I had to change my mindset around food. Solid food. I don't eat to fill myself up. I don't eat with the expectation that I'm going to finish my plate. I eat for pleasure. I didn't have the opportunity to eat for almost a year of my life. Anything I get to put in my mouth is a bonus.
Survivorship has been full of highs and lows for Beth, but it's changed the way she sees life entirely.
I had to learn how to eat and talk, and live my life as a person with a disability. I fit into a lot of boxes that I didn't before. And survivorship in some ways has been as complicated as being a patient. The mental load as a survivor is a lot. I felt very alone when I found out that I had head and neck cancer as a young woman. And that's why I started with the social media. I really wanted to use it as a tool to track my own progress. The mid-30s is kind of weird because you can feel the 40s right around the corner, but since I just beat cancer, it feels like every birthday is a blessing. Just in general, seeing what I look like when I talk, controlling the movement in my face and mouth. Hi, how's everybody doing? I'm surviving. Does anybody else feel like life is just throwing punches? All of those things. And hopefully, my number one thought was if one other person, some girl, comes across me on my little corner of the internet and feels like they can relate to that, I will have done more good than bad.
Day by day, Beth has started loving herself again.
I could keep putting this invisible pressure on myself. from everyone else. Or I could just honor my body. I could stop being so mean to the girl that almost died and start taking care of her. And all I really wanted was to just like have a little bit of what I had before. My life will never be the same. And then I realized that this person that I am now is actually really freaking cool and super brave. Everything changed. I started that little thing online, and then a whole bunch of other people were like, hey, me too. I would like to take what happened to me and use it as something that does better in the world. All I want is like to make someone else feel a little less alone or a little less dead. I went into a room thinking that I would never tell anyone anything ever again. They told me they had no idea what I would sound like. And I cannot imagine being trapped inside my body. Not everybody gets this. Not everyone has a second chance. And not everyone gets to open their eyes for the first time. Cancer was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it feels like getting a second chance. And the bonus round is really sweet.